Hey, hi everyone. Today I'm going to discuss the solutions to Lab 5. I'm just looking for the. So this is attached here. So there are certain codes which are given to you, and there is this PDF file which is having the questions. But yeah, before you look at this video further, I hope that you have tried these questions on your own before coming to the solutions. So please don't directly look at the solutions. Try to do these questions on your own first. And then if you are unable to understand, then please feel free to go ahead and watch the video. So I'm just downloading this again so that I have the latest version. So this is the lab document. It's based on inheritance that we discussed a few weeks before. I think a week before. And so let's look at this first. So in the zip file, we have all the necessary files for this lab. So we essentially have like four Java files: dog.java, Labrador, Yorkshire, and dog.test.java. Dog.java has the definition of the dog class. Then you have two more classes based on the breed of the dogs, which extend the dog class. So at this point, it should be clear that extend keyword is used with inheritance. So if you write the dog class, let's say over here, then this Labrador class and the Yorkshire class, they are extending the dog class. So I'm just showing a small UML diagram here. So whenever you see the extends keyword, it's always inheritance, and you show inheritance with this arrow from the subclass to the superclass. So you might see different symbols used for inheritance in different books, but we are going to stick to this one. So do not draw simple arrows from dog to Labrador or Yorkshire to do this. Use correct UML symbols based on what we have seen previously. And then we have a dog test class, which has a driver program for creating a dog and making it speak. So let's take a look at the code, see whether it's compiling correctly or no. So as you see, you only have to compile the class dogtest.java and not any other class. And then we'll look at the questions. Let me just go back and download this file. Yes. Yeah. So this is a lab 5. We have one more class employee, which is actually for the second part of this assignment. Right now I'm discussing only first one. So we have dog test, Labrador and Yorkshire. So let's quickly take a look at the code. So this is your dog classes code. So you have a class dog, which has a data member string name. And as you can see, nothing is written in front of it. So it is public. Then you have public dog string name, which says this dot name equals to name. So note that this thing over here, this is a constructor, and actually let me write it here. It is a parameterized constructor. Now don't be confused that there is this keyword public written before it. Constructors do not have a return type, but this public here is not a return type. And this is an access specifier. If you want, you can remove it because by default it is public. Right, but you can still write public here, and it will still remain a constructor. But if you write something like void or some other return type here, it is no longer a constructor. So anyhow, this is a parameterized constructor which takes a name, and whatever name you give it, it will pass it to the dog's name. Now if you are confused about this keyword, so I'll tell you very quickly. Otherwise, you can just fast forward the video. So the idea is you see this name and this name over here. So both of these are conflicting. The name of the data member and the name of the local variable here are conflicting. So what we have done till now is we would have used something like this. And here you would say name equals to n. In that case, there was no conflict. So what we are saying is when you create an object of type dog, whatever string you are passing will get copied to this local variable n. And later this name will take value from this n. But however, if you keep it as name here, then if you write name equals to name here, that is ambiguous because we do not know which name you are referring to. And actually this name here, both of these name here refers to the local variable. Local variable is going to overshadow your data member. So essentially this statement is going to do nothing. So what you want to do is this name, which is data member, should get the value from this name, which is local variable. Therefore we use the keyword this. So this keyword means that whichever object is invoking this constructor, we are talking about the data member of that object. So it will set your name data member correctly. Then you have a string getName function which returns a string, and then a speak function which makes the dog speak and says woof. So that's all what's there in the dog class. Then uh, then we have Labrador class. So this is the one. As you can see, class Labrador extends dog. That means whatever is in dog, data member and member functions, they are also a part of Labrador now. So although Labrador doesn't have a data member called name, it is going to inherit it from dog, and you can still access the variable name for Labrador. In addition, it adds two more data members from its own side, which is color and breed weight. Then there is this parameterized constructor for Labrador, which is setting its color, but it is not setting its name. So we don't know what's happening here, right? How do you set a name for Labrador? So we'll talk about that later. So anyhow, a constructor, and then a speak function for Labrador also. Now that shows you have a speak function for dog if you come down, and then you have a speak function for Labrador also. So as we said, Labrador actually inherits the speak function from this dog class, but you have made one in the Labrador class also. So this concept over here, it's called function overriding. So whenever you call this speak function for any object of Labrador, it will call this overridden speak function and not the function of the superclass. The more specific version will be called. And then there is this another function, average breed weight, which returns its breed weight. So that's your Labrador class. This is your Yorkshire class. It's also extending dog. And as you can see, this is a constructor for Yorkshire, which takes a string name. And if you carefully see here, we are calling super name. So this we have discussed in the class, right? When you write here super, only super, so that's a hidden line, which is anyhow otherwise also present. It is responsible for calling the constructor of your super class. However, when you are passing a parameter over here, you ensure that you are not calling the default constructor of the superclass now. You are calling its parameterized constructor. So based on how the arguments are provided here, that will decide which of the constructors of the superclass will be called. And then this Yorkshire class also overrides the function speak. So that's all there is in this file. So this has been pasted incorrectly. These are although just comments. I'm just going to remove it. And then we have a class dogtest.java. This is our class which we are actually going to run. And this is the one, as you see, which has the main function. All we are doing here is creating an object of type dog. And we say dog equals to new dog spike. So if you look at the dog class, it has a parameterized constructor which takes a name argument. So this constructor is going to run and the name of the dog is going to be Spike. And then you can simply print this, right? So if you look at this dog.getName, dog.getName, if you come down, it's going to call this function getName, which is going to return the name of the dog. So the name of the dog and this says will be printed as it is, as it's a string, and then dog.speak function will be called. So let's see if this is working fine or not. So I'm going to compile this file dog.test.java, and you will see all the other associated files, they'll probably be automatically compiled. So when I compile dog.test.java, since it's making an object of class dog, as you can see here, dog class is compiled automatically, and we also see a class file for that. Anyhow, I'm going to run the dog test file, and it works perfectly. Says Spike says woof. Right. So far this seems like a working code. Let's now look at the questions. So the first set of questions are the basic inheritance questions. This one says add statement in dogtest.java after creating and printing the dog. So far we have only been creating a dog object. It's asking us to create and print a Yorkshire as well as a Labrador object. And then it says Labrador constructor requires two parameters, as we have seen, the name and the color. So yeah, that we know. And then it says do not modify any files except doctest.java. So as of now, we don't have to do that. And okay, all we have to do is recompile doctest.java. Okay. So it is just saying do not look at any other file for now. Just try to create an object of Yorkshire and Labrador and see what happens. Okay, let's go ahead. Try to do that. So let me try to create one for Yorkshire first. Well, say Yorkshire y dog equals to new dog. And what parameter do I pass here? I'll have to match the definition of the constructor in the Yorkshire. If you look at the constructor, it takes one argument, right? So I need to pass that one argument here. So let's say Tommy, and that's all. I'm just creating an object, not calling any function. And yeah, let's see whether this much is working or not. I get an error here. It says dog cannot be converted to Yorkshire. So we have said Yorkshire y dog equals to new dog, right? That's the mistake here. We are making a reference, we are creating a reference to y dog, but we are creating an object of dog. So I should correct this and write Yorkshire here because we are creating an object of Yorkshire. Okay, this one compiles well and runs fine. And now let's try to do the same thing with another class. Let's say Labrador L dog equals to new Labrador. I don't know the names of a lot of dogs, but there are some really funny names I have come across with some people. So maybe I'm going to use them here. But let's see. Let's look at the constructor of the Labrador. It requires a name and a color. So I need to provide both of these arguments. There is only one constructor here, which actually takes two strings. So my advisor's dog's name was Bhishma, so I'm going to use that here. And he was brown. Right. So yeah. So create an L dog whose name is Bhishma and who is brown. Let's see. And now we got an error. Let me just increase size. Yeah. So if you look at the error, it says the constructor dog in class dog cannot be applied to the given type. Now, what just went wrong here? You see, it is slightly confusing. We are creating an object of Labrador, but I am getting an error related to the constructor in the dog class. So just to show you what's happening, I'm going to remove these lines and I'm only going to focus on the Labrador class for now. So I'm creating an object of Labrador and let me clear this and run this again. So it says constructor dog in dog class cannot be applied. So although we are creating an object of Labrador, but the problem that you are encountering here is with the constructor of the dog class. How is that happening? We are not even uh, creating an object of dog. So what does the constructor of dog has to do here? So that is something we discussed in the lecture. So what happens when you try to create an object of Labrador? It's going to call this parameterized constructor of the Labrador class. And something goes wrong here. Something goes wrong here because, as we discussed, whenever you are creating an object of the subclass, it is going to invoke the constructor of the superclass. So by default, there is a hidden line here, super, which is running and executing, which is responsible for calling the constructor of your base class or the superclass. Now, don't get confused here. When we are calling the constructor of the base or the superclass, we are actually not creating any object of the base or superclass. The idea is that there are certain data members in this subclass which it is inheriting from the superclass. So, to instantiate their values, to initialize their values, you need to call the constructor of the superclass. We will still be creating the object only for the subclass, but to set the values for some of the inherited data members, we need to call this, and that's how it happens. Now, when this super call, let me write this, calling the default constructor of the base class, right? Because there is no argument. So this hidden line, it is always by default going to call the default constructor. And now if you look at the base class, which is dog.java, the problem is that there is no default constructor here. There is only one constructor which is parameterized. So you better call the parameterized constructor of the dog class. That is already shown to you how to do that in this code here. You see this class Yorkshire string name. So it is explicitly calling instead of the default constructor, the parameterized constructor by passing an argument here, which is name. So we need to do that even in this class. So I'm going to add a line here, super, I'm going to call name. And let's see if this resolves our problem. Yeah, right. So no compilation error. And this works fine. So let's see. Hmm. So if you examine the constructor in Labrador.java, you will notice that the dog constructor from the superclass is not being properly invoked, which is causing this error. So we just discussed this, right? What is incorrect here, that we were calling the default constructor. So what is happening? What call must be made in the constructor of a subclass? We just corrected that. So you should call the parameterized constructor of the base class. Fix this issue, right? So that dog test.java successfully creates and makes the dog Labrador and Yorkshire speak. So we can also do that, invoking their speak functions. So I'll go back to my file. Let me, yeah, control Z here. And all you have to do is make this ydog and ldog also speak. So let me add these lines here. So ydog.getName says ydog.speak and ldog.getName says ldog.speak. Let's check. Oh, I should compile this first. I get an error now. Constructor Labrador cannot be applied. Okay, it was taking two parameters, name and color. Okay, right. So this all works. So as you can see, this function is acting differently for all the three classes. Spike says woof, it's a capital W. Tommy says woof, everything is in small. Bhishma says woof, everything is in capital. So you can see that when we run this function, different versions of these functions are running. As we have seen this speak function, it was overridden in your Yorkshire and Labrador class. So it is acting accordingly. Right, your overridden functions are getting called. Okay, let's I'll provide you a bunch of videos. Maybe this is enough for the first question. For the second question, I'll record it in yet another part.